blueprint for the Dual Toxocyst, or however you want to pronounce it, is within the biolab, the Infested lab. You can buy it for 175 platinum, or once it's researched, you can build it. It does need one former, 4 mutilist mass. That's these things. So you gotta build 4 of these first for this thing. That's actually quite expensive. Apart from that, it's just nanospores. Quite a lot of plastids, actually. These are quite expensive to build, considering they don't exactly have the most damage on them, and a fire rate of 1 for this. Ugh. You can kind of see why people keep comparing these to the AK bolt, or considering kind of similar specs, apart from the fact this has slash, and that's pretty much the only similarity between the two, considering it does more puncture, more impact, more status, quicker reload, and then it goes through the floor. The magazine's crap, the fire rate's crap, and the accuracy is crap compared to the AK Bolter. Even comparing them to the Telos Bolter, whatever, yeah, it still does a little bit more damage, but honestly, I even thought about it and comparing this thing, or these things, to even the Acrid, which is kind of the similar thing, because the Dual Toxocyst, or however you want to pronounce it, fires needles, if you will. It actually says something about brain needles. Try and find them again. Brain spikes. That's what it was. And this thing kind of fires a similar type thing, but yeah, this has just toxic damage. Hardly any status. Yeah, comparing it to them is a waste of time as well. But god damn, they do look nice. Actually really nice. And it does come with 2 polarities for a change. Hornet Strike is definitely going into the V, and the dash, I'll probably go for the Puncture event mod, which, yeah, it's ball. So that will definitely be going in there, just to increase its base damage before anything else. The first weird part about these weapons is the fire rate is pretty goddamn slow, unless you land a headshot, which opens the guns, as you'll see there, and the fire rate goes through the goddamn roof for a short period of time. Have not figured out how long that's exactly for. I mean, reloaded, bring them out, they're still open, and there they go. That makes them a pretty weird weapon, to be honest. Weirdly, the damage on this does not really scale up that well. 135, another 135, same thing, got to land the headshot to initiate the buff, if you want to call it that. And yeah, even though it's still hitting for not really that much, get dead. It will take quite a lot of rounds on these, because as you've seen on the level 50, not a problem, took it out fairly effectively. Gets to level 100s and things start to go terribly wrong. It's hitting for around 1,000 each one, so it's all 1,400 and critting for 1,800 there. Yeah, not that good against the higher level enemies, unfortunately. The build I put on the Dual Toxocyst is basically pretty rubbish. I've gone for another full-blown elemental one, throwing in the 4 dual status mods. Not really needed. You can take one off and it's basically got 99.8 on there. You could probably get away with putting something weird like unranked sure shot. No, it has to be ranked up. But I don't see the point in that for the extra 0.2%. May as well just stick with Pistol Pestilence, because that then takes the damage, it throws it to corrosive instead of magnetic at 430.1. Remembering these things have got that weird buff I was just on about. I've basically thrown Bore and Hornet Strike on here to increase its base damage. It now does 630 puncture. Gunslinger is purely for fire rate, and instead of barrel diffusion I've stuck with Lethal Torrent, because it does add some multi-shot, but it more importantly adds the fire rate that this weapon, I wouldn't say it badly needs. Once you get that headshot and it opens up the gun, it does become much faster, but it helps a lot. After that, there isn't really much that can be said about this thing. They look pretty cool. The fact that they open up and have that weird thing that shoots the, what was it they called it? A brain dart? is pretty nice. The fire rate I only managed to get to 2.32. I probably could get that higher. A crit build on this, even though it is possible to put crit builds on low crit chance weapons, only having the 5%, it's definitely more of a status based weapon. The reload, can't really complain that much about that either. I kind of wish though, considering it's shooting darts, that it was a silent weapon. If this was a silent weapon, this would become by far a hell of a good silent weapon. Because up to level 60 enemies, it does take them out pretty quickly. After that, it does start to suffer, as you've seen with the 135s there. Yeah, major problems taking out the first one. Second one, not so much. When it procs, it's definitely a pretty decent weapon, but without the proc there, yeah, there is definitely better silent weapons than this. Mainly because it's not a silent weapon, it's an alarming weapon, but even with blast on there, it didn't really knock anybody over, so the blast wasn't really taking effect, even though it's 100% status on it. It should have been doing blast, which, okay, it has a chance to knock over enemies, but it would have been nice if that was most of the time. But the fact it has the 630.8 puncture on this thing, with the build I've kind of got on this, it makes it a viable weapon, though it still has its downside. Its downside mainly being, without getting that headshot first, these things can just be so bad, because the fire rate, especially if you take the fire rate mods off, you can spam fire as much as you want. You have to get the headshot to make it at all viable. So even with Gunslinger and that on there, you still have to, that headshot to open up the buff on these. If you can land it, makes them a pretty good weapon actually.